Well. Looks like we're back at it again, YouTube. Wow. It hasn't been that long this time, apparently. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. Appreciate you being here. My name's Dusty, aka Fyredust, and I've been a DM for almost 2 years now. And I was never, hand taught by any mentor types out there. Most of my advice and research has come from the gurus who have already walked the path of DMing and game mastering for, well, decades now, considering the TTRPG scene has been around for, some time. One of those being the likes of Matthew Colville. And this video is in direct response to his most recent video that he published on his channel about oracles, visions, and prophecies. And because he said he was interested in learning about how it has worked or not worked in our own campaigns, I feel like I had a little bit of grounds to make a video such as this and, just kind of give my take on things and kind of share with you all my experience of employing those elements in my campaign. And to give you a little bit more context, the campaign that I've been running is the 5th edition D&D, and we are approaching session number 90 tomorrow. So we've come a long way, that's for sure. And considering I was completely new to DMing a couple years ago, I had to really search for ways to be able to make the game work. Because at the time, I was sitting at a table of 9 players, okay? And no, I do not recommend doing this really at any point in time, especially if you're new. But I mean, if you think you can handle it, then by all means. I'm not going to discourage you, but I will say, if you're not familiar with doing that or running a game with more than like 6 players, it's a different experience. So just be ready for the difficulty spike. But today, I'm not sure who's actually going to be watching this, but my hopes is that because he was curious, Colville will somehow see this as well. When I first began the campaign and drafting up what I wanted to be the main through lines, the main plots, if you will, that the players, the characters were going to have to tackle. We began with just the 2 intro books to 5th edition, the Dragon of Icespire Peak and the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And what I did was I combined both of those adventure modules, which are pretty short in their own right, to really flesh out the world of Faerun. And all of it conveniently is centered around the very small mining town of Phandalin. As that adventure, which started at level 1, all the players did, I definitely had enough time while I was getting my footing in this new space to really develop what I wanted to be the main driving force of it all. What would be the hook, to keep the players going. Because pretty much all of us at the table were aware, even throughout the first few sessions, that we were going to go beyond what was in the material that we were covering. There was this idea that I had been introduced to by other experienced DMs online, was that in the lore of the D&D universe, pretty much any setting that you pick that's already been pre-established, you're going to find out that the deities, the gods of these worlds, are not passive entities. They very much play an active role in whatever's going on, really. I would say if you're playing a campaign that is a much lower level, much lower tier, then you don't have to bring the scale of a deity into the campaign. That's not necessary. You can do it. There's plenty of ways to do it, and it could add more interesting flavor to whatever you're doing, especially if you've got someone in your party who is in any way religious. If you've got a cleric or a paladin, or maybe a warlock or a divine soul sorcerer, there's plenty of other characters that can fall into that category. But once you start bringing deities into the campaign and really showing through actions and events that they care about the world that the players are interacting with, then the players themselves will find that more or less they have some kind of higher calling, a higher purpose, right? Because some character motivations can be boiled down to I just want money or fame or title or power. There's a lot of character motivations that are a little bit more surface level than this god has called me to cleanse this old temple so that their faith can be revived in the area or something. That's just a small example. But I knew that my campaign from the beginning was going to go to level 20. I had made that commitment with myself that we were going to run from level 1 to 20. I know that sounds pretty ambitious, right? Especially for a new DM. But I knew that, with the way I get into hobbies and stuff like that, once I find interest in something, I go all in, and that's kind of one of the ways I did. So, anyways, looking at the adventure modules, they had given a location called the Shrine of Sovereigns, which, if you're not familiar, Sovereigns is sort of like the oracle deity, if you will. And I wanted to be able to use that as a storytelling device to somehow introduce or develop the plot further, to really reinforce that idea that, hey, you guys are done cleaning up the small trash here and there. You guys have defeated this orc camp. They had just got done slaying the dragon of Icespire Peak, which, by the way, I made an adult dragon and not a young dragon, because my players were level 8, I think, at the time, and so there needed to be like a more sufficient challenge for them. And anyways, they come upon the Shrine of Sovereigns, and the party finds this orb type object that is centered on this altar, and the orb looks completely out of place in this area because this Shrine of Sovereigns is kind of like decrepit. It hasn't been visited for decades or longer. Everything is covered in dirt, dust. The elements have really worn this place down, but the orb looks untouched. And as each of them go to inspect it, they receive a vision. And I wanted to make sure that whenever we got done with one major plot, whatever that was, that there was at least one other to pursue afterwards. Because say they conquer the big bad evil guy at level 14, well, there's still 6 more levels of campaign to go. And I didn't want to just completely run everything out of a book. And so from there, each of the characters received vision. But certain characters would receive one vision of the sky going completely black and filling in the sky, almost encompassing the entirety of it above. There was a red horned symbol. And as I described it and drew it out for them, of course some of the players at the table with their, extra knowledge outside of the game recognized it as the symbol of Nicobolus. So got the players wrapped up right then and there, because they're sitting here, in the process of just taking out the dragon, some orcs, and now they are given this incredible vision of like an apocalyptic style event. And as they are taking in the sight of that symbol, they see dragons, chromatic dragons of all kind, begin to soar into the air and collect themselves around this symbol. Dozens and dozens of dragons of all size. It was supposed to spell out this like apocalyptic event. Other players were given a vision of a large crystalline tower that emerges from the ground of some old ancient ruins that are deep within some forest of an undisclosed location. And this tower is huge. It just scales almost infinitely into the sky. By doing that, it kind of gave them even more of a reason to stay together. Some characters, you could say, once they go on to accomplish whatever it is that they're trying to do, some of them almost have no further reason to stay in the party. They can just kind of retire. They made enough money, or they got the title that they wanted, right? They are, at the time, employed by this organization called the Guild of Masters. They go back to the guild headquarters in Phandalin after receiving this vision, because this was basically visiting the Shrine of Solvarus was at the very tail end of resolving all of the book material that I had discussed earlier, the Dragon of Icespire Peak, the Lost Mine of Phandelver. They completed pretty much everything in those two books and are now going back to the base to discuss with the Grandmasters who employ them what they saw. And so with that, the Grandmasters are able to kind of share a little bit, or maybe help the players hypothesize and postulate, what those visions can mean. From there, I noticed that even though the particular visions that they received haven't come up often afterwards, like in terms of just discussing what the vision was, it was just enough of a hook for them to be curious, as Matt discussed in his video. And that is kind of really the main goal, is to instill a sense of curiosity and give not just the characters a reason to stay together and pursue whatever it is, but for the players themselves to come back to the table the next session. It's creating that tension, that sense of something being unresolved, that really pushes the player and the character forward. In my campaign so far, it's worked. They are getting close to the end of this Nicobolus arc. They are about to find his lair, and they're about to attempt to stop him once and for all, have a big old fight. They are level 16 right now. We've gone from 1 to 16. And there's still more levels of gameplay afterwards, which is where the Crystal Tower comes in. And a few other things, I've got the Dungeon of the Mad Mage book, and there might be a little side quest waiting for them there. And in fact, I've done my part, gone out of my way to drop these little side quests here and there, and even if they're not directly relevant at the moment, there is like a foreshadow of, hey, after you're done doing this other thing over here is waiting for you. So again, it's all about this repeat, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? I wonder, how are we going to solve this particular situation? Or how did it even come about? And of course, as Colville once said in one of his games, the DM, you're responsible for just kind of plopping the situation in front of them and say, deal with it. you know, as opposed to having all these convoluted pre-written solutions behind the screen, and they have to do this exact thing for everything to work out. It's been working so far. At the end of the day, I believe that, and this was a point that I was a little bit surprised that he didn't mention in his video, is this classic storytelling element of show, not tell. Basically what that means is something is a lot more compelling and immersive if you can show an event as opposed to just reading from a tomb of sorts, right? It's the idea that their actions are, an action is going to speak louder than words. So visions are a way for the Dungeon Master, the Game Master, to show something, to describe a story, to describe an event, as opposed to, once again, just saying, okay, you go and find this book and you read the book. Now, the book kind of thing, like Matt described in his video, it can come up later. It can help clarify some things. But introducing the vision first is what really gets the motivation going. As long as it's kind of made known in some way, however you want to do it, that that vision is directly tied to that character in some way. I used the device and gave the players different visions so that it could facilitate more dialogue in the party. Like, hey, what did you see? Oh, I saw something different. What did you see? Wow, that's strange. See, I saw this. And so they could start developing it amongst themselves. As a DM, and those moments are great where you can just sit back and watch and revel in the intrigue of the players and the plot that they develop by themselves. You know, and of course, as a DM, you should, you know, have some kind of triggers planned at some point to move it along yourself, right? You're not going to just sit at the table every session with nothing in front of you. It just goes back to the idea that, sure, you are facilitating the game, but it is the players who are really the driving force in moving things along. You have the responsibility if something, you know, a scene gets stale at the table or something like that. You know, eventually you gain a sense of like, okay, this moment is over, we can move on. You can use these situations like dreams and deities that already exist, like relating to oracles themselves, as storytelling devices. Now, granted, once again, this has been the only long-term campaign that I've run before, or only campaign in general. I have a small sample size, but in any case, I hope this video is somewhat encouraging to the rest of you out there to try some of this for yourself. If you feel like there's anything that I missed or left out, let me know in the comments down below. And again, if you're new to the channel, hey, appreciate you stopping by. If you like the content, hey, why don't you, you know, give me a little like down there, hit that thumbs up, and maybe subscribe. You know, I'm gonna be releasing more content pretty soon. I plan on trying to upload a little more regularly. This includes, you know, I want to do a campaign recap, like the story so far kind of thing. And I feel like there's some more tips that I've learned along the way that have helped me out, and I would like to help the community out by sharing those. So if you've got any interesting video ideas or topics that you want to discuss, go ahead and leave those down below as well. So anyways, thanks for watching, and guess I'll see you later.